My Rottweiler puppy and I were sitting in the house just now discussing lobe separation angles and lift and duration and stuff, camshaft technology. And she said, have you ever made a video about a C6 Corvette automatic shifter install? I was like, no. She said, you should think about that. She said it with a German accent, of course. So what I'm going to do in this video is take out the center console area. It's very easy, very quick. And I'm going to show you how to handle a couple things. First of all, how to remove and install that center console bezel. I'm going to show you how to remove the stock automatic shifter in a C6 Corvette, which is very similar to a C5. I'm going to show you how to change out the bushing on the front of the shifter cable, which happens with alarming regularity in C5s and C6s. And I'll show you how to just put the new one in, put it all back together, and without any fires or explosions and stuff like that. So let's do it. That's where we're starting. Now what we're going to do is just basically pull up on this. Start gently kind of pulling up and prying, and just bit by bit all the way around this outer surface. It'll pop pretty much right out of place, but there will be some plugs and things like that and wires. So as you're pulling it out, just kind of peek up under there and see if there's anything you need to disconnect, like this. This little piece comes out of here. Up in here, there's some little clips and things like that, but let's get to it. I'm going to pull that back, lift that up. Just start kind of going around the edges. Start kind of prying up on the edges. Now this is all just, see how it's coming loose? As you go, bit by bit, take your time. Little plastic piece pops off right here. Unless, of course, you feel like breaking it. Sounded like I broke it, but look, see those pins are still on there. Make sure those are indeed in place before you put it back together, and make sure that they're lined up on those tabs, perfectly straight on there like that. See what I'm saying? And make sure they're all the way pushed down. We'll mess with that again in a minute. But anyway, we pull the rest of the way around here. I know you're thinking, how does he treat his Corvette that way? Well, that's how they come apart. All right, get my old janky shifter here that doesn't work properly. Put that back in a forward gear. Put your foot on the brake, or have your emergency brake on. One more tab here. Pull this plug off in the back. That being, of course, for your emergency flashers. As we come down here and you start pulling this up out of the way, you'll notice we got some more plugs here. Remove them from their respective plug. One right there on the lighter, one right here on the ride control, if your car has such a thing. Also, don't forget the seat warmers, if your trim package has those. One on each side, and then we're ready to come out. 10mm Harbor Freight, 73-foot extension Harbor Freight, and Husky 1/4-inch drive ratchet. You got one here, one over there. You have two up in the front, and then we're done. As I'm removing these, I want to tell you something that I think has value. Sometimes people get caught up in the whole thing of like, well, it's a Corvette, the parts are expensive. That's not true. You can spend big dollars if you want, or you could be a little more patient, like with any other thing in life, and do okay. If you start looking around, you'll notice entire shifter assemblies are about $350 to $400. The one thing I've noticed is that if you're just patient, if you don't get in a hurry, don't put yourself in a position where you need to have the part by midnight or something like that, unless you're going to buy it on Amazon. But anyway, if you can be a little more patient, you can find a shifter like I did for $100 for the whole assembly. Guy was parting out a car, but it took me a couple of months of just doing other stuff to the car to get the part. But I have it now, and it's getting ready to go in. Remember, the one thing I will remind you is that this whole shifter assembly is ready to just pop up now. So down on the bottom of this shifter, is just on the bottom of this rod, is the other part of the shifter that hangs down, and it's just got a little tab on it. And on that tab, the shifter cable just slides and attaches on with a little plastic clip. I'm going to tell you now, if you lift this shifter assembly too high out of its home here, you're going to break that cable, and the entire thing has to come loose. And if you've ever seen under a C5 or a C6, that big plate in the middle that kind of covers the torque tube, all those screws on it, guess what has to come out? That's not fun. So let's try to be very gentle as we pull this out of here and lift up just enough where we can pry that little tab out of the shifter cable. Here we go. Got to be very gentle. Gonna get you zoomed in here. I'll show you what I'm talking about with the pin. See that right there? Man, do not lift up any higher than you absolutely have to, because there's a sheath around that cable. And if you, the shifter cable, if you lift up on that a little too much, it's over. So just be gentle and press outward. Maybe get a flathead screwdriver behind there, but just think gentle. It's all about gentle. And now, after starting off with gentle taps with a screwdriver and eventually virtually beating the crap out of it, it did come loose. However, the cable is still good and it's down in there. See? But that's what you're dealing with. That thing just pops on and off of there. This would be a really good time to go ahead and change out that bushing. You can get them at any parts store. However, in a case of do as I say, and I'm just going to go ahead and not replace mine. So you'll probably have a video coming shortly about how to take it all apart again. But let's get the other shifter out here. I told you guys a few minutes ago I found this guy on Facebook Marketplace. When you have a C5 or C6, you have a car that's already a few years old. So when you're going to get a part like this, why don't you ask him if he has any other parts? Go ahead and have some spares. I got this and got some other parts on the way too. As you'll see here, I don't have to undo the small plug. I don't have to undo it here. I have to undo it back here at this big one, which is a lot easier. And when I'm done, it slides down in a bracket here. I'll show you. It's pretty easy. Also, some of you may have heard various women in your life, or guys or whatever, talking about how they go through their closet and throw out stuff now and then. Don't throw this out immediately. You could put in the new shifter and that little micro switch down there could not work properly, or there could be a crack on the housing. You just don't know yet. So put this back in the box that the other one came in, leave it there in the garage for a while, however you feel, whether it be a month or 6 months or a week or whatever. But before you throw it away, make sure that you don't need this, and even talk to your Corvette buddies and see if they need anything, because you may as well give it to them free instead of just throwing it out, Some of you may be looking at this and saying, Sean, it's got blue stitching. And it's not perfect. I didn't expect it to be. It was crazy cheap. But all I'm going to do is get a Sharpie and run it along that, and I'll now have black stitching. It doesn't have to be art. Just has to make it not blue. This part right here, trying to get that back on there, you're going to it would be best if you had toddler hands, because that little piece right there has to go back on that without lifting the cable too much. And if you're 2 to 4 years old, you could probably do it. The rest of us are going to have to be very, very patient. It's not difficult, it's just tedious. So be calm, relax, in with the good air, out with the bad air, expelling all negativity. You are a glowing light of positivity and enthusiasm, who also has a cold beer waiting inside when this project has been completed. I can't decide if it's because I'm brilliant or I've had just so many POSs that I just found a way to the other side. But I did. I'll show you what I did. See that piece of rope? I put the rope down in there, kind of hanging down, making a loop. And I put it around the cable and pulled it up just enough, then reached my hand in and shoved the part that goes onto the tab on this, and it shoved right on and snapped, and it's working. So a piece of rope or string, or it worked. Let's just bolt it back together now. I said there's a little place for this to fit down in here. It goes right down in here. You're going to have to take a moment to kind of figure out the way that it snaps in. I can't stress enough how you just want to take your time, because see how there's a cable stuck back behind here? We don't want to just tighten that down and mess up your seat warmer. You might have cold buns one day. Slide this down over the 4 mounts. In my application, I realized that I had to turn the power on. You know how you have the release when to put it into gear, you need power, you need the key fob, and you need to put your foot on the brake. And now it goes through gears properly. You'll know you have it pretty much properly in there too, because when you pull straight back on it, it won't work, but when you push in the button, it goes through the gears freely. Don't start it, because you don't know which gear it's in. Let's get it all bolted down and stuff, and then we'll mess with that. For those of you who do have an earlier C6, such as this one, this is an 07 convertible with the LS2 auto, obviously. For those of you who are wondering why it has the blue stitching, it came out of a 2012 Grand Sport. I can find one of these knobs here or there through GM for about 60 or 70 bucks, and I could change that out. Plus I have the boot from the other one. Mine had an internal flaw up inside here. A little piece of plastic was broken. That's why I needed the whole shifter. Made sense to buy the thing all at once, but I may still buy another one of these because this outer piece is a little funky. But that's your own call right there. You decide if you need the $400 setup or the $100 setup. I'm rebuilding this one because the whole front end got smacked up. So above anything, I want to have a functional part first, and then later on, if I want to make something, you know, if I want to get something better cosmetically, I'll keep looking for that, and I'll install it when I find it. This is real easy to take this off here. But let's get it bolted down and put all the pieces back in place. Remember to hook up all the little gadgets. You have a seat warmer left, seat warmer right, lighter. You have a traction control here, and depending on your suspension that you have on the car, you have a sport, you know, the suspension button or knob. And also, don't forget that one on top, your emergency flasher button. But once you get those all stuck in place, we're just kind of lining up the plastic now. See my little dirty spot there? Dag nabbit. Make sure the clips line up. Make sure they're centered on those. Snap that thing down. Also remember that after all this finagling and stuff, you might have to start the car, put this shifter back in a forward gear, or now turn this off so there are no surprises. Keep your foot on the brake if you are not on a flat area, or if the emergency brake is not activated. Pop it back up into park when you're tired of the constant bing, bing, bing. Press gently all the way around. Don't just smack it. Might have to move it around a little bit because some of these tabs get jostled around while you're doing all this stuff. And remember the piece of plastic that goes over here. You can tell how it goes back on by that pin right there and that pin by there. Make sure they're seated properly. You can tell this kind of sticks up under the piece down here, so we kind of get that in place. And once again, you'll see this little channel right here that wraps around the silvery part here. So just move it around, take your time, don't get in a hurry. You can do this where it's totally perfect. Now I still have that emergency brake cover that I've not put on yet. It's in the garage. I'll have to mess with that later. But as of right now, make sure all the little buttons look like they're supposedly in the right place. Start the car. And when it starts, check all the individual things. The seat over there is working. Seat over here is working. The climate control works. The radio works. We can't tell this unless we're driving. A lot of people can't tell then either. But traction control, let's reset that. Traction control off. Competitive driving mode. This changes everything. I feel so competitive right now. By the way, the reason the tire pressure warning sensor right there is flashing is because there are no tire pressure sensors anywhere on the car. This is really common for a lot of C5s and C6s. When it's time to change tires or whatever, they're like, no, not gonna put those back on. Check engine light still has to do with the fact that I've done a lot of stuff under the hood and I've just not reset it yet, and I use HP tuners to do so. I don't use one of the handheld units. It's more involved stuff. But anyway, there you have it. It's got the new shifter in it. Seems to work totally fine. I'll take it. Oh yeah, there's a safety detent there. If you're ever driving around and just drive like it is now, and you're wanting to put it down into sport mode, you have to push in the button to do it. And then of course your flappy paddles up here. The one on the back makes it go down in a gear, as in 4, 3, 2, 1. The ones on top go up in gears, as in 1, 2, 3, 4. That's all we're doing today. The project has been completed, so hopefully that showed you not only how to change out a shifter, but it showed you how to take the center console out and to make sure all the little plugs are in properly. And same thing goes with the radio and the climate control unit. All of these components, once you take this little plastic piece off gently, the components behind it are right there. Have a couple of 7mm screws here that hold the radio in, then there's a couple plugs on the back. So it's a lot easier than you would imagine. Don't get intimidated by working on your Corvette. I put this whole dash in here and that was a little intimidating. Holy crap, was that, woo! But anyway, I've changed out the entire doors. I've changed out the entire dash. I changed out both airbags. I put an entire front end on the car. Everything out there. And a mirror. So there's nothing on this car that you can't do. Well, there's a lot of stuff on the car I probably can't do, but I believe in you. Thank you for watching this video, and thank you in advance for liking and subscribing the channel. There's a lot of different stuff on here, from messing with Corvettes to three-wheeled cars to motorcycles to go-karts and mini bikes. It's a little crazy. Even some video of my Rottweiler Raven. Thank you guys for watching once again. Have a great day.